director. The other one was a licensed psychologist, myself, and the police chief. And the policy that we have before you this evening for your consideration and adoption is a policy that was basically the League of Minnesota Cities policy. So it's a policy that's not been written by this group. It's a policy that was put together by the League. It's been vetted by many cities, many attorneys, many police departments have adopted it throughout the state of Minnesota. What we were reviewing in that policy were options. There was a few options that can be selected in there. For example, such as when should cameras be turned on? When shouldn't they be turned on? Do officers have the ability to view the footage before or after writing a report? Things like that. And there's recommendations and policies to follow. So this group met, discussed that. I think we had three or four meetings to review this. And again, it was a policy that was basically put together by the League, and it was a review to fit our community. So what's before you this evening is that policy with a recommendation from that group for your consideration and adoption. And the process that follows with this is we have to go through these steps, create a policy. Council needs to adopt the policy. We need to have the public hearing. We did advertise it in our legal newspaper for 2 weeks prior to this. It was also posted on our website and our weekly newsletters that go out electronically. And then we did receive one written comment back. And Mayor, I believe you have that. If you could maybe read that as part of the public hearing. But other than that, we received no comments from any of the other public. And I don't know if we have anybody in the audience this evening that would like to speak to this issue. But again, I just want to open it up for questions and comments. This is a significant improvement, I guess I would call it, for our police department and our community as a whole, to be able to have this technology become available for the department.
Let's open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the public who would like to give their statement in regards to this policy, they can do so at this time. Is there anybody?
If there's anybody out there that would like to raise their hand, if you're not already unmuted. Not seeing anybody in the audience, Mayor.
Okay, I do have one here that is written to the city. I am glad to hear that North St. Paul police officers will have body cameras. I hope that the rules will require that they will be on if the officer is on duty. On more than off would be best. I am sure that our police want to serve our community to the best of their ability. Having body cameras on while they are on duty will best serve the officer and the public. Thank you, Rita During, 2736 Chisholm Avenue, North St. Paul. So that's the one public comment that we did receive by email. Any questions for City Manager Dudek from the council?
I also do have our Chief of Police on this evening, so any comments? Chief Loth is on this call also. Tom, if you've got any comments to add, or if council has any questions.
Tom, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor.
If you, I know it's been a long process. You got anything to say about the cameras or reaction from the police or something?
Well, I would say the police officers themselves, this is a tool that they've wanted for a long time. And I think it really benefits the officers and the community as a whole. It's, as you know, I mean, with tight budgets and everything, it's been tough to get here. And I think City Manager Dudek for his leadership on this in getting us there to this point. But as you've seen, that in 2020, it was quite a trying year with George Floyd and all other things coming to a head. And this is a way to help bridge our relationship with the community to use the term that's often thrown around, transparency, but it's one of the things that we can do out there to give our public some confidence in our officers and what we're doing. So I look forward to being able to implement it. Just getting the policy in place is kind of the first step, and we've got some other ones now as to procure the body cameras, and then also the training and everything to actually get them implemented.
I'm kind of snickering here because I hear a dog in the background. I don't know whose dog it is. Is that yours, Tom?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. I know the police are actually very excited because some cases they're using their cell phones for trying to use them as body cameras. So, go ahead, City Manager.
This process again, having the small committee to review this, making recommendations, coming forward to council, doing a public hearing on it. All these steps have to take place. Council, you need to adopt the policy if you're comfortable with it before we can move ahead with procurement. So once this policy is adopted, that will be our next step, and that's part of the approval process this evening to authorize us to move ahead with procurement of the equipment. And our next step with that, there's two main brands that we will be looking at, and we're going to be having a meeting with the police department and supervisors in that to review the technology on both sides of that area and to make a determination which piece we're going to go to. Both of those are on the state bid list, as you know, because these are used by all the agencies in the area. So our bidding processes are covered by that when we are ready to make the actual procurement. But we want to move this along, as quickly as we can. There's a lot of steps to happen, even after approval tonight, if that's where the outcome is. By the time we go through, it's going to be a fairly quick process to make a determination on which piece of equipment we're going to use or which brand. But then after the acquisition of the equipment, we've got training that has to take place, those things before it can actually be put in use in the field.
You know how long it would take before the officers actually have the cameras in place and working?
I don't yet, and the only reason I'm saying that is I don't know what the delivery time is, and my hesitation to give a date is just as we're seeing with everything else under these times, and what's the availability of the shipping time. But I don't have anything to support this, but I would say 3 months maybe, and I don't know if that's long or short until we get an idea on equipment and then the training piece with it. Again, some of the benefits that we have is a small department, so training exercises should go quickly. There's a couple officers that have had familiarity using the cameras from other agencies. So I think that process should go fairly quickly.
Any other questions for City Manager?
I have quite a few questions just to preface. And then first to start off, I want to thank Police Chief Tom Loth for and the committee for taking the time to review this policy. And one question I do have of many is just a clarifying question around the scope of the policy where it says the chief or the chief's designee may supersede this policy by providing specific instructions for body-worn cameras in certain scenarios. So I'm just trying to think about implementation and in what cases would that be implemented? So what kind of discretion and scenarios would that be used?
City Manager?
Well, and I can certainly let the chief speak to this, but I think there's some areas if you're referring to when would they be worn or when may they not be worn. Is that?
Yeah. So when would this policy be superseded? Because there's autonomy to supersede the policy itself. Is that correct?
And maybe I'll let the chief speak to it because I don't think I don't want to give the illusion that this policy is going to be superseded on a routine and normal basis, but I'll let the chief speak to it.
No, I actually, That's just to provide for emergency operations. As is stated in there, there are some discretionary areas there for officers when to turn on the cameras, when to use them, etc. Because we also want to protect the public, and we don't want to just record everything that gets voluminous and everything. But there are some areas where you have a disaster or say the protests are in North St. Paul or something like that, where I would want to supersede that and say, no, we want all cameras on right now or something like that. So that's one or two instances on something that where we may do that. Or there may be specific direction to an officer you're working with, whether it's negative or positive enforcement to something, to use a camera properly, or it may be for a temporary period, just to make sure that policy is being followed.
And I will say that there might be a case where, and I think there'll be some adjustments to this policy, very subtle, related to the type of equipment that we get. So there may be, depending on the storage, if it's a web-based application or if it's a server-based application. So depending on that, we may make some additions to this policy so that we make sure that we're covering, how is the footage documented or different, how is it marked or labeled? And so small changes like that, but there wouldn't be any significant changes of use per se.
Councilmember Juan?
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't clear on the lines in which that would be implemented, so that was a little bit helpful. My concern with that is that there is some ambiguity to it still, if that makes sense, within the policy itself. So I think, if there is an opportunity to kind of highlight some of those scenarios a little bit more in depth, I think that would provide some clarity for me and residents.
Okay.
Anything else, Councilmember Juan?
Let's see. So every staff that every officer issued BWC would receive training. I wasn't clear on what that training entails or who does the training, or is that from the company, et cetera.
Turn over to the police chief or Scott. Either one.
Well, I can throw mine in, and I'll throw mine in, and I'll let Chief follow up with it. But yeah, same thing as we work through who the vendor is going to be. The vendor would normally provide training to a couple, maybe supervisors, if not basically a trainer, and then they would reach out and they would train the rest of the department. So that's normally how we've done it on some of this type of equipment information. But I'll let the chief comment on that further.
Yeah, that's exactly what we would do, because obviously whoever the vendor is, the training, the use of the camera will be different. So we're at storage, and so just implementing how the officers are to wear it, how when to turn it on, when to mute it, if we've gotten into a privacy issue, different things like that. So as Scott said there, we would be looking to train probably supervisors, maybe certain officers, in being the trainers, the experts for the department. And then they would bring the training home to the rest of the department, or maybe initially, depending on the vendor, maybe their expert would be there alongside our trainers to ensure that it goes properly through. I mean, it's a big step, and we want to get it right, and we want to train our people properly to have this ongoing thing, because there's going to be new officers coming on eventually and things like that. So we have to be able to train our people in the use of it, and just when different things come up, maybe retraining to, because we can't predict all instances of what is going to happen. So, some of it has to be fluid, but like I say, a lot of it will depend on the vendor, and we definitely want to have our experts in the training on it so that we can give our officers the best direction and the best opportunity for success with the system.
Yeah, I think along that same line, Councilmember Wong, that the policy that we have this evening is as thorough as we could make it without those questions, because we have some of those similar questions with the vendors and as this thing comes together. So I think what would be, and please continue with your questions in council if you have any others, we would take notes with all this, but we would be looking for is, again, that if this is acceptable to you after conversation, that it gets us moving to get us on to the next step. And then some of these light administrative changes to the policy updates or whatever based on the vendor, and some of those would be amended to the policy, and that could even be brought back to the council, or would be brought back to the council as we're nearing implementation of the new equipment.
Councilmember Wong.
Thank you. My next question is in regards to data. So in under use and documentation, section E, it classifies public data as total number of the BWC's daily record of total number of BWC's, total amount of recorded BWC data collected, and within the records retention schedule. My question is, in that recording and documentation, is there an opportunity to collect more qualitative data where I see in downloading and labeling data section B, we have different types of evidence, 1 through 7 all the way to not evidence. Is there a way to combine the classification of that to partner the quantitative piece of that documentation with the qualitative aspect of it, so we have a little bit more clear data on what kind of incidences or evidence that we're looking at? Does that make sense?
And if I'm following you, the 1 through 7, that'll end up being like a drop-down menu for the officers. So when they've got their footage and the camera, they can drop down. There'll be a drop-down that they can identify what type of evidence it is for the report gathering. Go up further with that.
Chief Loth.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm just trying to, lay everything here. It's just hard to maybe answer all these questions directly right here sometimes with that, because just jumping back page to page on trying to figure out where we're at on the things. And
Lisa, are you thinking of merging the two datas together?
Yeah, so when we have, records and documentation, we have the number of, X, Y, and Z. And then also just wondering if the classification of type of evidence is also partnered with that recording. So that combination.
I believe it is. I believe it is partnered together with it. That's on the recording. And some of those things I don't know enough about, again, about the camera system to know how that merges together. And that'll be something that we'll have to, again, I guess, learn through this process. But taking a lot of this background and this policy, again, from the League of Minnesota Cities on the requirements that have been set forth that they laid out. Those types of, or that section of the policy is not anything that we changed. So this is right from the League's model policy. A couple of the items that we had a choice on, again, was, for example, one of the large ones that I think I mentioned earlier was officers being able to view the footage before or after writing a report. There was only like 2 or 3 options that we could really had a choice on for discussion. But otherwise, what's in here is the layout that's been proposed by the League and has been vetted. So we can certainly follow up with that and get answers to those questions.
Councilmember Wine.
Thank you. My other question is, let's see. Is there any documentation of when the videos are edited or altered or erased? And I'm looking at data security safeguards. So is there kind of an original copy of the evidence before it is manipulated or edited, altered, erased? So is there an original copy that's kept?
Okay, from what I understand, and this is, again, we'd have to speak with the vendors, and just having spoken with other police departments and not going back to this all the time, but this is a League of Minnesota Cities policy that they've laid out years ago when other departments first started going to this. From what I understand on all these systems, the original recording stays intact. This is recording on the system, and I don't know enough about that to bring it up here and show it, but some of the ones I've looked at a little bit then show when dates and times of when anybody's accessed those as for looking at them, viewing them, and if any part of the thing with the vendor, from what I understand, is as for making recordings of it or anything like that, that's all going to be documented in there. It doesn't allow anybody to race or cut up to splice a system for those purposes. So not that that's not impossible in this day and age with technology and people, obviously, but from what I understand, these systems are pretty safeguarded, and the ability for anybody to delete from the system, I guess that's something we're going to learn down the road or whatever, as for exactly what that is or how that is done. And that's obviously going to be very, very limited as for who can do that, just the same as for who can make recordings of it to fulfill Minnesota government data practices requests and things like that too. This isn't something where, though officers may be able to view it for their report or whatever, it's not something they're going to be share or be able to put out there for other people to view or whatever. All that type of stuff is going to be locked down. And again, I'm just going to have to wait till we see who the vendor is and how we have that. So.
But that is correct. That it is that original recording is what the original recording was, and it keeps a recording of, because there's all the credentials of the officers that have login access. Anytime there's any access or any login, everything is documented and recorded on any edits or changes that are made or just viewing for that matter. But the original tape is always sound and intact.
Councilmember Juan.
And then I guess you've already probably answered this question, but is there any reason in which 90 days and 6 years in terms of data retention, why were those chosen?
Those were not numbers that we put in place. Those were in the original policy from the league. And I think those are times that we can also look at whether they can be adjusted, whether they should be shorter or longer, depending on the storage media. If it's just something that's going to be cloud-based storage, or if this is going to be something that's going to be stored locally on local servers. That decision hasn't been made yet either. That's the main difference between the two different vendors. One's a cloud-based option, and the other one is a local server-based.
Also, there's the state data retention laws and stuff. They address a lot of those things as for minimums. So a lot of those things we don't even really have a choice on. It's as with our evidence, other different reports and everything. The state mandates how long we have to hold on to certain types of data.
Councilmember Juan.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you. So anything else for City Manager Dudek or Chief Loth?
Yeah, I've got some questions as well. If I could
Yep.
give me time. Okay. Yeah, just to follow up, great questions from Councilmember Wong and her concerns or questions about that scope policy and how there's a provision where the chief may designate to supersede the policy. I guess I share those same concerns in that, not that this, I'm accusing anyone of doing something, but if there was a scenario where this policy was being enacted to where orders were given to officers to say, stray from this policy, like don't record anything, with interactions with this particular individual, or, always record everything when, you have interactions with this particular individual, something along those lines. Is there any kind of notification that, hey, this policy is being superseded by orders of the chief or the city manager giving orders to the chief, where there's notification given to the council or our legal staff or, the city manager to where they're made aware that this is going on, I guess, is my kind of question or concern. Yeah. I don't know if there's specifically addresses that.
No, it doesn't, because in this case it gives that authority to the chief. But what I'm hearing from a couple of you, that the concerns within this scope area are areas that we need to probably look at as we go through this with this equipment and not that it's all going to hinge on the equipment, because this certainly would not. But as we go through this, to make some of those adjustments to fit those comfort levels of not only council, but I'm assuming if you have questions on those, that they may be some of those same concerns that we would hear from the public.
Yeah.
I take those as.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that popped into my head. I mean, I guess to be completely honest, I'm a little disappointed in the complete lack of involvement or input from the public. I would assume that this was something that there'd be all sorts of people, asking questions or whatnot, but I don't know what to attribute that to, but hopefully, I guess what I'm trying to say is now it feels like we're being presented to us now, and now is the time to discuss this, because I mean, are we going to vote on this tonight? It looks like, or are we going to table this to further discussion? I mean, it just kind of seems like, and let me just state for the record, I'm glad that we're moving this way and taking this step, and I think the sooner we can get these on the officers and them using them, the better. But there's also, a lot that goes on behind the scenes here that we got to make sure we're doing everything on the, correctly. And, it's difficult as a policymaker and the council to try to envision all scenarios that are going to come up. That I know that's not the designation for this policy per se, but naturally when things happen, that's when you look back to your policy and then everyone says, well, why didn't you guys talk about this or whatever? So the more we can do now, the better. But just moving along, and to circle back to with the training, I had that kind of marked as, it would be nice if there's like a subsection or an amendment or, whatever the terminology is that would go along with this policy, that where if someone did from the public say, well, what kind of training and how often is this training implemented, was, because I'd imagine there's some sort of, written policy that officers are going to have to read through on, here's the standard procedures of how and when or whatever, that sort of training would be able to be included with this so the public has access to it. I think that would be a good idea. And then, I guess the modification of data or that whole idea of, and I guess this is mainly just what limited knowledge I have and what I've seen through the media, but it seems like a lot of times when this comes up, it's obviously a controversial issue. And, I don't know if it's the media that manipulates it or cuts parts out or makes it look like, something that it's not, but I guess that is a concern. And what assurances do we have that, if this data is uploaded originally in its raw form, and someone accesses it, how, how's that software worked, and is there a way where someone can access it and then delete that so it doesn't look like it was in, I guess those are questions that I would have over, today's day and age, and how, all these photographs and videos, you can't really tell what's real or not anymore. It gets to the point where, some of this stuff gets manipulated and changed, and just what assurance do we have to the public, I guess, is what I'm asking, or would like to point out, that our data is secure, it's original footage, it's not been manipulated or changed in any way, and here's how we prove it, or whatever, I guess, is more of what I would like to see. And then just in general, I don't think it's necessarily needs to be in any, written statement or whatever, but I think it's just good idea to communicate to the public that, from now on, when you interact with the police, you should just assume you're being recorded, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. It's probably a good policy to have no matter what, but now that we actually are going to have this equipment, they should know and understand that completely. And that, if there's a conversation that someone engages with an officer as kind of, hey, how's it going? And it evolves to something else where, threats are being made to an individual or comments are being made, that potentially that becomes evidence now that the officer decides, hey, I said hi to so-and-so and they went on this rant about how they hate this person and now they want to do this and that. And not necessarily that person getting charged, but is that kind of something where that's where this drop down information, I guess, is where I'm going at, where initially a conversation may look like the officer doesn't have to record it and they would turn it off, but then turn it back on because now all of a sudden, well, now this person is making these comments that could become evidence if something were to happen. Or do officers, are they obligated to notify people, when they're interacting with them, that, hey, you're being recorded right now? I guess I didn't see if there was anything in there. Maybe I glanced over it. Do they have an obligation to notify them of that they're being recorded or not?
No,
Chief, do you want to respond? Otherwise,
Sure. No, they don't have an obligation to inform people that they're being recorded. That's something that maybe people should, just assume. But
Okay.
Again, what the vendors we're dealing with and everything we'll be looking at, like I said, the body-worn camera phenomena, or so to speak, has been around for quite a while, and these vendors have developed, as these concerns, which we're all bringing up here, which is great, but have been, voiced by many other municipalities across the United States, and therefore the ability to erase anything or whatever is, as I say, is highly limited. These things are archivable, and the feds use them for different things. There's those types of concerns. Obviously exist just because you never really know, I guess you're saying, but it's going to be extremely hard for anybody to do that. Every system I've seen out there, from what I understand on it, it's going to be very locked down. Officers are going to be able to view their interaction through that, but they're not going to be able to open up anybody else's things or anything like that. And the staff that does make copies of stuff for requests and whatever is going to be very limited as for who those people are and to grab the different things on it. State also requires auditing by an outside firm or agency of your practices, your video and everything too. So that's something too that we would have to set up. So this isn't something that we're going to be auditing ourselves on, but we have to do that and provide that to the state on I believe, a yearly basis.
right. Yeah, and the other, just comment on the companies that have put this together. It's not like we're able to buy a version of editable versus not editable or higher standard. This is a product that's out there that meets federal law enforcement standards, and it's a high quality product. And all these questions that we had, I'm glad we're hearing them, but that's what these companies do, and it's met that criteria. But we'll definitely follow up with all this, and I appreciate the comments. I'm making notes of them, and this is what this evening's about.
Right. Any other questions for City Manager? or police chief?
Last question.
Councilmember Wong.
I'm just trying to, so the purpose is for providing to the public transparency and evidence in the case, there is an incident. And I looked at the league's model options that they have. I'm just curious on the, in terms of efficiency, the decision on, choosing just automatic when you're going to interact with the public that you turn it on versus certain cases, and then, the officer will make the decision to turn it on rather than, just instantly making that decision to turn the camera on. So I'm just wondering what the thought was behind that.
Is there triggers for the on? Is that what you're saying? Kind of a trigger? What kind of on and off? What that is?
Yeah. So my understanding of the policy options was one. The first one is no matter which type of encounter that would happen, an officer would turn the camera on. And I think the other option was to, if there is something that they deem, worthy of recording, then that discretion to turn it on is there. So I'm just trying to understand, one, what the trade-off is in terms of efficiency.
I think and I'll just give a quick comment and I'll let the chief follow up. I think where that discussion was held is, similarly to, let's say we were talking about National Night Out. So we've got officers, uniformed officers that are out with the cameras. And I think that would be an example of they're not going to have their camera on interacting with the public and something like that in more of a casual encounter, because I think some of the concern is there with the public, feeling, well, I'm being taped and talking. And so those opportunities not to tape it, and opportunities when it needs to be taped and the officer can engage it. And also when these cameras are turned on, let's say the officer turns the camera on, I believe can't remember if it's 5 seconds or 10 seconds that it has recording prior to that actual camera being turned on. So when they activate the camera, it's 5 or 10 seconds prior to that initiation. So that video is captured prior to that. But Chief, I'll let you follow up.
Interesting.
And yes, like the cameras do have a reach back feature, just like our squad video does too. And as for recording everything all the time, we get into some privacy issues with people we're probably trying to serve here and there. And there are also the other things as being approachable as officers is part of this discussion, that some people wouldn't want to talk to the officers if everything's being recorded, and knowing that anything we record is public data, so therefore can be requested. So though the cameras are very good to provide transparency as for what we do, they may be intimidating to some people who may not then want to interact with the police, fearing that whatever they say now is public data.
I think that was conversation that the committee had also, is, to not, again, trying to maintain as much openness with the police department and not close a door, as the chief just described, but also the ability to record when necessary, and also the ability that as things go and hopefully it's not a bad situation, but there's room to adjust this policy into that fashion of Councilmember Wong's comment about cameras on all occasions versus having this flexibility with an officer to be able to turn them on and when they believe the need is there.
Because I'm reading, the very first portion of the policy under the purpose, and I've never been in that role myself, but things can happen fast and evolve quickly. So that's kind of, you know, where I'm thinking, okay, do officers really have the time to make that discretion at the drop of a hat? So I'm just trying to understand the scenario a little bit.
Yeah, and I will say that the cameras have basically a large button on them. So, you know, it's obviously it's worn front chest on the officer. So there's a large button there for just a quick, it's not something that they have to be, you know, looking at, but they do have to have that second interaction to turn that on.
Can I ask a follow-up on that then?
Councilmember Thorson?
So when an officer activates his camera, is there like a sound or a light that comes on? Because I think that's kind of what I was getting to too, in my question about, you know, how does an officer deem like, well, this conversation is mundane and not worth recording, but all of a sudden it escalates to, well, gee, now he's starting to say stuff that it's probably should be recorded and used as evidence if something comes, you know, what, you know, and maybe some of these questions were asked already in this committee. That was there meeting minutes taken at this committee? And then you stated there was a couple of members from the public, but you didn't say who they were. I mean, isn't that, I mean, I would imagine that's probably information that we should probably have too, or at least included in part of this, you know, for the public.
Yeah, those meetings were recorded. They were Zoom meetings and they were recorded.
Okay. And will there be meeting minutes like made up for that eventually get reviewed and approved by the council, or?
Well, I guess they can be. It was again, it was a short work group meeting, so it wasn't the intent behind it to have like a committee or an ongoing. So basically, after their recommendation from this, that group is basically released. It's not an ongoing commission, if you will, but that information is all available.
But that meeting wasn't ever advertised, was it? I mean, it wasn't open to the public, was it?
Correct. No, correct. It was not.
Okay, so I don't know if that's relevant or not. I mean, I feel that same way. It's kind of like, well, I mean, if the policy decision is, you know, either you have it on all the time and then after the fact you determine, yeah, that's not anything we need to keep, then it's you know, it gets stored as, you know, one of those 7 items. It says, you know, not evidence, number 7, and then after 90 days it gets deleted. Because I guess that's the whole point of, well, why would you keep something that's not evidence for any period of time that something could come up and it could be evidence? Like maybe that person goes missing and, you know, well, I talked to him, let's get a description and some video out to the public. Well, shoot, we deleted it. You know, I don't know. Because isn't that how what's the policy with the police in-car cameras? Are those always rolling? Or is there any overlap here with those policies or what?
Well, and I'll let the chief comment on this, but these cameras will be a direct integration with the in-car cameras. These tie together into the same system. And with the new vehicles that we have coming this year, those new vehicles would be outfitted with the tie together. So yeah, that would all be one footage.
All right. So I guess going back to that was a long common question thing, but my original question was, how do officers know these things are on?
I know there's a way to show that they're on, but it's not something that the officer is it's not going to display a light on them because obviously you don't want to target like that. And that'll be an operational question that we can get. But again, that's something that's, I can't answer it anymore.
Well, and then why I'm asking this is because it is going to be, I mean, I understand there's no secret these things exist, and, you know, everyone's got a cell phone, so anything could be recorded or, you know, video or audio or both. But this is new. I mean, all of our officers are going to have this now, and it's going to be different interacting with them, whether you like it or not. And I think we touched on some of the cons of having these cameras is that it's going to discourage public from interacting with the police, whether you agree with that or not, I think it's a fact. You know, there's people that are going to say, well, I'm not going to talk to them because they're recording everything I say, you know, and they're going to use it against me or something, you know. So if someone asks the officer, am I being recorded? Are they obligated to tell them yes or no?
Chief Loth?
As I said, the way the policy is, they're not required to advise somebody that they're recording things. I would think if somebody asks you, yes, you're just like, yeah, what's your badge number? You're going to tell them, yes, I have a body camera on. Yes, you're on squad video. I mean, we've seen that in those recordings and stuff. So just looking at it through the history of what we've had, I would say, yes, they're going to answer them and say, yeah, you're being recorded.
Okay.
So.
But I think it's like upon us as a council and city to encourage it. That's a good thing. You know, the reason why it's on is for my safety and yours.
Yes.
You know, and it's not to be you. And so I think, you know, whenever this policy gets adopted, there's certainly probably going to be some revisions down the road, and we're not going to vet all this out right now. It's never going to be perfect, but I think there's another aspect of how, you know, we need to reach out and engage with the public and get into that community policing and be proactive and let them know, hey, here's a major change that's going on. Here's what to expect. And, you know, this isn't something to be feared or viewed upon as a negative. This is something that's a positive. And, you know, you don't need to do much research to see how, you know, a routine traffic stop can turn deadly in a matter of seconds. You know, there's plenty of video out there on YouTube. And so, you know, I think I would, at least from my limited knowledge or what I feel is would be best policy would be to lean towards the cameras are always on. And then that kind of eliminates a lot of uncertainties and questions about stuff. But I mean, if that's not what's being recommended by law enforcement and the league, I mean, I guess, you know, I'm okay with that, but I guess I would like to know specific reasons why.
And I just will follow up with, again, that to just kind of what was stated, that the concern about, and the reason it was an optional thing is the concern about more of that community type policing type thing. Let's say an officer is, you know, on walking in the downtown and stopped in one of the businesses just to stop in and say hi, check in. Those are the types of atmospheres that, you know, camera recording wouldn't be on, giving the opportunity for the officer the availability to record, when to not to record, and to try not to annihilate people from wanting to have that interaction with officers. But it's a tight rope, like you say, because things can change quickly, and to be able to, you know, turn that camera on, and I guess a lot of that we have to rely on officers' instinct and what's happening and the call that they're going to and timing. But it's definitely going back to the one comment that we did have from an email from one of our residents. That was that person's comment, is that they're happy to see us doing that, and that they on more than off would be best. That was the one comment that we did receive.
Sure. And my one last comment here that I had written down that I wanted to make a point of too is kind of more of, you know, is this a pro or a con or whatever? But I mean, so I used to be a firefighter, and we responded to quite a few medical calls, and our police department responds to those calls as well. I mean, how are we going to communicate with residents that, you know, now that every officer has a body worn camera, even though it says in our policy, you know, if they're responding to a call that's medical related, you know, you don't have to worry about it. But the fact that someone's walking into your home with a camera, you know, I mean, what assurances or how is, and then what happens if an officer responds to a like a medical related call and someone's, you know, I don't know, got something going on and guns laying around or something that appears to be suspicious to the officer. I mean, is at that point they say, well, you know, because typically you need a warrant and stuff like that to enter a home. But if they're there and they observed something, I mean, is that, I guess, I don't know how to word it legally, but what protections do individuals have if they seek medical attention, but are concerned about, well, I'm worried about a police officer. Outside of the fact that, well, you shouldn't have to worry about doing stuff if it's illegal anyway, you know, but still the point circles back to by having this policy, we might be discouraging people from calling 911 because they don't want people walking in their house with cameras recording their home inside their home. How is that addressed?
Chief?
That's a good question.
You know, that's part of the concerns here because of the data practices and privacy issues and everything. And one of the cons of having a camera on all the time. Also, too, how many parents out there really, I mean, they like to see them interact with the officers, but then again, how many parents want to see their kids splashed all over on things too, when just a normal reaction. So those types of things are going to get in the way if we're saying, well, you have to have the camera on all the time. So, I mean, I mean, whether, like you said, somebody, a medical emergency, somebody's a victim of a crime or of some sort, and, you know, there are some protections in there, state laws that for there, but there's also had to be a little discretionary items and trust in the officers to record or not record certain things in when people are in, let's say, a vulnerable area or position.
And we addressed that in the policy about officers need not record, you know, medical care unless there's a reason to believe that the documentation may have evidentiary value. I guess, and again, not that it's right, but I look at this as the recording and a tool that we're going from nothing to getting this in place. And it was kind of a comments that the group had talked about, and just the concerns that you're bringing up is when to record, when not to record, and giving the officer the flexibility to record when seen fit, and we don't lose that public input on just normal general interaction, and keep that open lines with our public. And just like this policy, as Councilmember Thorson said, you know, this policy is going to be fluid to some point as we're getting things in place and we see you know, use of it, and we need to make changes. We'll make changes. This isn't something that we want to looking for adoption and say, okay, it's adopted and we're not going to look back. This will be a constant, I think, a constant review and look at operationally and how the public responds to it, whether it's more or less. Well, I shouldn't say less. We're at the lesser, but we've got the ability to, based on the policy today, to go stronger. And that would be, in this case, moving forward with a camera on all the time versus having the officer have that flexibility.
Okay. Any other questions for city manager or police chief? Most members. So at this time, I'll close the public hearing at 7:31, and we'll go into city business action items and recommendations. City manager Dudek.
So Mayor, Council, thank you again. So as we've been discussing on our body worn cameras, we'd be looking for your approval and authorization, if you're so comfortable, to adopt the policy this evening on the body worn cameras, and also the authorization to pursue the acquisition of the equipment for that. And I guess what I would just say along with that is that all of the input that we've had this evening in discussion on this is very much taken to heart on that. And I think as we go along the way, there's going to be other issues that we're going to find that we're going to want to amend also, just for operational standpoints, and make it clear so that I guess I'd like to see the policy clear enough so, like in Councilmember Wong's comment, that we take all those kind of questions out so that it's much clearer in area wherever we can clear things up, that it takes out all those questions as much as possible. I think there's always going to be some discretion in there, but that we would look to continue to enhance this policy and can bring it back whenever there's any revisions or recommended revisions to the council. But with that, if the council is comfortable, we would ask for your approval of the policy submitted this evening, and also with the approval to pursue the acquisition of the equipment.
Okay, so the resolution is for adopting the body worn camera policy for law enforcement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye, opposed nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye, motion is approved. Was there a second motion, Scott, for the,
No, that was embedded with this for the
okay,
acquisition. That was part of that resolution.
okay.
And Mayor, Council, thank you. I guess I want to pass along also that we will keep the council very much involved with this. I mean, I think not only going through, where we are with procurement and keep updating you with that. And even as we move along to training and things like that, if you want to be a part of that and see what's going on, this is something that we want to be very, very public about as we go through this process. And we're proud of moving ahead with this. This has been something that's been, talked about for years. And so to get to this point, it's not something that we want to, shove under the rug and keep moving forward. We want to be very, very open with this and involved. So with that, I'll move on to the next item unless anybody else has any comments or follow up on that.
Go ahead.
Next item then is the Anchor View third amendment to the contract. And this also is the item C was added late this afternoon for a subordination agreement for this. And as I mentioned earlier, we're nearing closing, which that closing has been moved out twice. That's why this is the third amendment. So the first and second amendment had to do with closing dates. So the first closing date was back in November, and that had to be moved twice based on closing and just putting all these documents together and financing with the developer. So the first and second amendment were amending closing dates. This third amendment for the contract is amending. This has to do with the TIF agreement. We had, based on when the project was going to start, it was anticipated that we would have partial value of the project in place by January 1 of 21, and then full value of the project in place by January 1 of 22. Now, based on the start times and construction and closing, we will have a partial value in 2022 tax reporting period and full value for taxation in 23. So we're amending that in the contract and also amending the minimum assessment agreement that we have. So the developer signs the minimum assessment agreement. We sign that, and Ramsey County taxation also signs off on that. And that's something then that is recorded against the property so that we can make sure that the taxes are properly collected and assessed on the property to pay the TIF back that we're providing on this. So that's what that amendment does this evening. And again, we're looking for a closing on Wednesday of next week, and we intentionally set it middle of the week with anticipation of we have a couple of days to follow up before the end of the month should there be something happen. So unless there has any other questions related to the third amendment, I'd look for your approval.
Any questions for city manager? If not, the motion is to approve the third amendment to contract for private development. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Your Honor.
So moved by Councilmember Peterson, second by Councilmember Wong. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye, opposed nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye. Motion is approved. City Manager Dudek.
The next item is the subordination agreement contract. And again, this is basically relative to the mortgage and the financing with the lender. One of the things I'm happy to report with this is, and you can see within this document, is Old National is the lender on this project. I believe they're also the lender on the project in the downtown at the old City Hall site. So I think it's a statement that a branch of that bank in our community here is financing two very large projects. I think it shows their commitment and of these projects within our community. But I just wanted to point that out. But again, this is a resolution tied to the closing documents to allow for the subordination agreement with contract in the Old National Bank as the mortgage lender.
Good. Any questions for City Manager Duda? If not, the motion is for resolution approved in collateral assignment and subordination of contract for private development. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson, second by Councilmember Cole. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Jenny, take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye. Motion is approved. City Manager Duda.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Our next item is the 2021 appointments for our commissions and authorities. So we have a couple, well, I guess I'll go through them individually here. Start out with, if you follow through on the memo, with our Economic Development Authority, we have one member that is, their term is up, and that's currently our chair, Robert Dew. That individual is interested in being reappointed. So that is a slot that was filled and his term is expiring, so looking for reappointment there. Parks and Recreation Commission, same thing, Sarah Zaradka. Term is expiring, but the individual is looking for reappointment. Police Civil Service Commission, Robert Ingwer, same issue, expiring term, looking to be reappointed. Planning Commission, John Monge is looking to be reappointed. His term is expiring, and he just came on the Planning Commission last year and was filling in a term of one of our planning commissioners that left early term. So the reason we listed those separately, these are all positions and terms that the people are in now, but their terms are expiring and they're looking for reappointment. Then as we go down through this memo, the first one is the Planning Commission, and these were actual vacancies that we have on the Planning Commission. So we did put out application or notification on our website looking for applicants for Park and Rec Commission, the Planning Commission. And so what we did receive back, in this case on the Planning Commission, we received application from Andrew Wise, Jason Nordby, Eric Brenna, Wayne Horan, and James Schmidt. After review of that, the mayor was recommending appointment of Andrew Wise and Eric Brenna for the Planning Commission. And then similarly on the Park Commission, we had actual vacancies there. And same thing with applications that were received, Arthur Alvarez, Cassidy Schreer, and Sarah Morrison. And mayor is making recommendation for appointment, that one to Arthur Alvarez for the Park and Rec Commission. The last area that we had was our Economic Development Authority. And that one's a little bit different. Though these are positions that have not been formally appointed, we had Kevin Fuller and Archie Vickerman, who had been attending meetings of the EDA. They've never been formally appointed, but they were attending because there was open positions there. So that, well, there was one open position, and they'd been just attending meetings. And then at the end of the year here, we had one of our members that had decided not to renew their term, which expired at the end of the year. So that actually left an opening on the EDA for 2 positions. So with that, Mayor and Executive Director of the EDA are making the recommendation to formally appoint Kevin Fuller and Archie Vickerman to the EDA, who have been attending meetings in the recent past here without, they were just, this would give them formal appointments to the commission. So with that, if there's any questions, I also have an attachment with this besides the resolution, but there's also attachment in your packet that would show the council the different designations and committees and the expiration of their terms. One thing I will say that we did make an adjustment on is the Economic Development Authority was set up with 6-year terms. And under this, we're proposing that we change those to 3-year terms to be consistent with all of our other commissions and authority. That was the only one that had a 6-year term. So under this proposal, they would all have staggering 3-year terms. So you can see what those terms are. Council is based on your election term. And there's several blanks in here on that form where there's representatives from different groups, specifically like the Athletic Association or Hockey Association, things like that. When those are known to us, we'll update this and make you aware of it. But at this point, we don't have those contacts or who those parties will be for the upcoming year. But unless there's any questions, we would recommend approval.
Any questions for City Manager Dudek?
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Okay, Councilmember Thorson?
I guess they're more for you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I don't necessarily have any objection to any of these appointments, but I guess I do have questions when it, like, why did you arrive at these individuals versus the others that applied? I mean, what's the thought process between selecting certain people over others? Because, I mean, my objection is mostly more towards the process here. I mean, I understand the mayor makes the recommendations to the council for these, but the council actually votes on them. But because we're not involved in any of this, that was my question. Well, how many people applied for the Planning Commission and the Parks Commission? And of those people, who was selected and why, I guess, would be the basic, simple questions I would have without being involved in the process.
That's a good question. So we had a list of questions that we asked each candidate. A few of the candidates, it's hard to get into, a judgment call in regards to character and that type of thing. But city manager, was also with me, and there's a few of them are just kind of a no-brainer that they would not fit for that role. Again, we asked the same questions to each one and got answers. We had one candidate that didn't ask questions or didn't answer our questions. So it was kind of a easy way to eliminate, but it's a judgment call on myself too. And I had conversation with the city manager, the two of us, and we came up with who we felt would be the best fit for those commissions.
And again, from my standpoint, this has historically been, this is the mayor's recommendation for it. So, our involvement was this, I would say probably the first time that we've done that I'm aware of that we've really advertised for membership to these commissions, and I think it showed. We had a fair amount of input for it, which was good. Something that we would continue to do, and it's just like anything else. The reviewing the application, and no disrespect to any of these people, because I'm really happy that they've applied, and hopefully we can get them involved in things in the city, someplace or the other, because it shows that they're interested in it. But somebody has to be selected, so there isn't anybody that I would say is necessarily bad, but just like anything else.
No, that's what I'm saying. I hope this doesn't get construed that way. I mean, I understand that that's the stance, that traditionally this is the mayor's appointment, but it's taking council action to approve these. So
Right.
my question mainly is because previously there was this, questions years ago about a particular commission and the appointments. And at the time, the mayor stated, well, there were no other applicants, when that turned out to not to be true. That's what was told to the council when this very same question was being asked. Why wasn't a particular person considered? And the council was told at the time, well, no one else applied, which wasn't true. So, I mean, look, again, I'm not saying I disagree with these appointments. I'm saying I don't agree with the process here. And I think there should be a little more transparency and openness to why these decisions are made and who's applying. And, I think in years past when we had some applicants, there was like a form they filled out and that was included in the packet. So at least going into the meeting, when we get this on Friday, we could read it and see, oh, okay, well, there was 3 positions on Parks Commission and only 3 people applied. Okay, well, then, it's a no-brainer. But if there's 3 openings and 12 people applied, naturally my question is, well, why were these 3 chosen over the others? So, but I guess, that's my input here, that in the future that there's a little more involvement with the council if the council's being asked, to vote to approve it, but, whatever. And then, we got the Environmental Advisory Commission and Design and Review Commission on here still. And I've asked about this every year since I've been on, and concerns over, what's the status of these organizations and that they're on hiatus, but how long does a hiatus last? So what's the update on what we're doing with that?
Oh, it was kind of, Councilmember Thorson, I read in the paper the other day, there was, I forget what organization it was, but there was a hiatus. It's been 10 years. I'm going, wow, that's a long time. But I think at the last council meeting, we're going to talk about that at a workshop or even at the retreat. How long do we want to keep these on a hiatus? So it's something that we are going to talk about. And then, and I think all the applications, that we got, we interviewed everybody that was there. There wasn't anybody who we did not, get their application. We did not interview. So I don't know if that happened during my time as a mayor, Councilmember Thorson, or
No,
previous?
This was back several years ago before you were mayor.
Okay, good.
You were on the council at the time. I mean, I remember the conversation vividly, but I guess I didn't go to the extent to dig through the meeting minutes because I believe it happened in 2014, maybe late 2013, because these are usually done in January, the first meeting in January, or second meeting, usually their first meeting in January, and then the workshop. But but whatever. I mean, I have no problem with these people that are being appointed. I don't personally know them, but I'm sure they're nice, great people. Most people in this community are. And I'm just objecting to the process because I think there should be more council involvement in the decision making and solicitation of, because if we're going to extend continue to do Environmental Advisory Commission and Design and Review Commission, I think that's something that every council member and staff should be involved with. Hey, let's go out and find people to fill this. Let's, clarify the role of the EAC and the design. Let's get this involved. Let's get people excited and engaged and involved. And I think a lot of times that's where maybe potentially that might defer or get people disinterested because they think, well, Councilmember Thorson's the one who makes the decisions here and he's not my friend, so I'm not going to apply. Or that's not the case at all, right? I mean, I'm not saying that's happening either, where someone's not applying because they don't like the mayor and think that they're not going to get appointed, but I don't know that for sure. So if there maybe was a little more openness and understanding that, you don't have to get a personal invitation from the mayor to serve on a commission or committee, maybe more people might be interested in applying. I don't know, but that's all. That's, again, not objecting to the people being presented, just objecting to the process.
So it's kind of funny. I asked a couple people and to be part of. Well, one person asked to be part of one of the commissions, and I picked somebody else. So it's, I felt kind of bad.
Well, and then it takes the pressure off of you too, because now it's like, well, I got to make this decision. But again, in reality, we're voting on it here. But whatever. I've made my point clear.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the resolution approving appointments to commissions and authority for 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved, Your Honor.
So moved by Councilmember Peterson. Second by Councilmember Wine. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye, oppose, nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Nay.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye. Motion is approved. City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Next item that we have is the event. Let me see. Gambling permit event for Richardson Elementary School. Chief Loft, if you're still on, do you want to speak to that quickly? I don't know if we lost Tom or if he's still on. Yep, there he is.
Most of me here at all is just battling for room here. As the mayor said earlier, I thought I heard a dog and stuff like that. And my dog doesn't much like computers or anything here like that, so just battling for space with him there. But yes, the fundraiser. Well, the gambling permit is a fundraiser for Richardson PTA, Parent Teachers Association, and it's an annual event that they have, and we've passed many times. It's a local permit, meaning it doesn't require state approval. It just on the city council alone. That's mostly due because of it's a low amount that they take in, meaning they meet either a $1,500 less per event or $5,000 per year that they use for prizes and whatnot to raise money. So it's a good event, and again, that it's something they do every year, and we've have a couple of our schools that do that. Unfortunately, the every year thing, I'll have to give the old 2020 thing. They weren't able to do that last year, so they're proactive in applying for it this year, hoping that they can pull it off with with the virus and that everything goes better. So it's something I highly recommend to the council to approve, and as it is a gambling event, it does require council approval by resolution for them to do this.
And I would assume, Chief, that we'll probably see the other elementary schools coming in time here if they move forward with this.
I would assume so. I would hope so. I mean, I'm hoping to get some of this stuff behind us, so this is more regular on what we're doing. But usually Richardson was somewhere in the neighborhood of the 6th to 7th permit every year, and I believe it's the first permit for us this year. And it's just, like I said, a reflection of what things have been. So, and I would assume, yes, with the other elementary schools and some of the other organizations that we have would be coming forward with some more of the gambling fundraiser events as they have throughout the year.
Very good, thank you. So if the council had any questions on this, we would look for approval of the gambling, charitable gambling for Richardson School.
Any questions for City Manager? If not, the motion is for a resolution approving a local lawful charitable gambling application for Richardson Elementary School Parents Support Group, PTA.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson, second by Councilmember Peterson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye. Motion is approved. City Manager Dudek, we're going to move items B and D down to, so it'll be D, E, F, we'll make them F and G.
Okay.
So on B, general accounts payable of $4,710,256.45. Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, I just want to pull that because I, was looking at that and I did not see any of the city credit card statements or purchases that, we had discussed about at a previous meeting. And we were told that those would appear on the detail of it. Before it was just showing up as a payment to Premier Bank credit card. And now, there was 1 month where we had the detail on there and I did not see that on this month. And I believe those payments are made at, or those are supposed to be included in the second meeting of each month because that's when the credit cards are paid. They don't fall on the first, they fall on whatever, mid-month. So I'm just curious as to why that's not on here.
City Manager, we got Finance Director Jason Zimmerman. You could.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I can address that. We do have a process in place that with the timeline to adhere to, and we did fail to meet that deadline, and so that's my responsibility that was not done in a timely fashion. We're somewhat behind on those statements, and I should have done a better job of ensuring that those would be completed in time for the meeting. So I'll address that issue and ensure we have a process in place that will be met and the timelines will be adhered to. So I apologize for that.
One thing I'll add to that with our credit cards statements too, online purchases and specifically one area with Amazon, because there's the city uses Amazon in a fair amount of purchases in different areas if it's a cost savings event. And that's one that triggered a lot of credit card payments because of that. What we're just doing now is moving to a platform with Amazon. It's Amazon Business, where they will, just like any other vendor, they will bill us on a statement and invoicing with 55-day terms. So that will clear up a lot of credit card utilization for individual sales and operating supplies or whatever it might be that's coming through that online vendor. So that'll be something that you'll see upcoming in the future.
Well, so just to clarify, I'm assuming the credit card payments for the month are being made. It's just the holdup is, the process, I would assume, of that people that have these cards, they need to submit receipts and those receipts need to be coded, and that's what's holding this up.
Yeah, Councilmember Thorson, that's correct.
Okay, so we're paying our bills. That's fine. It's just we're not.
It's delayed.
That's why it's being delayed, is because we have whoever these cards and whatever is not getting done. Okay, but I'll say it again and stress the importance that we need to follow that policy. And I don't know, to everyone who's got a city credit card. Make sure you are submitting your receipts to finance on a timely basis so they can classify what those expenses are for. It seems pretty simple and routine, so I don't understand why that's happening.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the general accounts payable of $4,710,256.45. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Second by Councilmember Wong. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Cole?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Mayor Furlong?
Aye. Motion is approved. We're also moving the 2020 Street and Utility Improvement Project, pay voucher number 9. Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, so on this one, for folks following along at home, looks like these pages changed on me here. I'm looking at the blue numbers, and looks like it's page 29 of 94. But I don't know if that's the, because there were multiple, I mean, there's changes made. I don't know if that's the same one, but it's the title page, pay voucher 9 from WSB. And I'm looking at the version that says in the blue letters, at the bottom, 29 of 94. So that tells me this is page 29 of 94 of the council packet, even though it says on the PDF there's 105 pages. So, and then the one above it says page 40 of 94. So I don't know. But just so people are following along and knowing where this is coming from, it says, you know, this is pay voucher number 9, City of North St. Paul contractor, T.A. Shifsky's and Sons. This is work to be certified to date, $4 million some odd dollars. Contract changes, $27,368.20. Okay. So, and I brought this up previously, you know, I believe it was in, I don't know, I can't recall exactly, but I know I brought this up. Maybe it was at the December meeting about when we have change orders to contracts that we've already approved. You know, I'm pretty sure our policy states that if there is a change to the contract that exceeds $19,999.99, so anything $20,000 or above, it needs prior council approval. Now, I completely understand that construction, you're always running into unknowns, and when those things happen, you know, naturally, this is how they're going to get paid for it. I'm not faulting our vendor, or, you know, the contractor at all, or our engineers, but again, process related. You know, we're looking at this change order, and the detail is on page 39 of 94, and it's got, you know, a long description from our engineer about what took place and why they did it. You know, great. I don't have an issue with it. What I have an issue of is it seems like this work was done before council approved it, and now so the work's been done, and now they're asking me to get paid, right? Okay, fine. To me, that's not the correct procedure and policy. We've come across this. It's outside the scope. We need a change order. We got to send it to the council, and they have to discuss it and approve it, and then we'll do it, and then it gets included to get paid. That's the process, and there's reasons for that. And I'm not making accusations, but if we're required by law to take the lowest responsible bid, and that lowest responsible bid over change orders turns into, you know, 10 or 20% higher than the highest bid that we received, is it really the lowest responsible bid? No. I mean, again, I'm not making accusations, but if we as a council don't hold contractors and our engineering firm and ourselves accountable, this is ripe for that kind of abuse where, you know, people know, just go in and throw a low bid because you can make up for it through change orders because they never question or call in anything into place. So I just want to make sure that this appears to be work that's already been done. And now it's coming to us for approval. So what if the council voted not to approve this? What would that put things? I mean, I'm sure that would put us in a precarious situation, and I don't want to be put in that situation, and I don't want any other council member to be in that situation or staff member. So all I'm asking that in the future, we follow our policy. And if it means we have to have a special meeting, so be it. If it means that we need to change this dollar threshold, let's do that. But we talked about this at the meeting, and everyone was comfortable with this $19,999. So I don't know. That's why I'm bringing it up, and just it's more of a comment and pointing out. I have no intention in voting no against it. I mean, this work is done. We have to pay him for it. But in the future, if we have major changes to the contract, they have to come to the council first, not after the fact. So that's all I have.
Okay. City Manager Dudek, you want to comment or?
Yeah, I just want to follow up with that. I think this is something that we should bring up at our discussion at a retreat or something to talk about, because this is, I hear exactly what Councilmember Thorson is saying. He's right. The policy says X, and it happens all the time on these projects. And I'm sure there's going to be more of them coming through, especially from this fall, with work that was being done in between snowstorms and getting completed, I'm sure we're going to run into this where we're going to see some projects or some costs coming in that will exceed that $19,000. So I think it's something that we should have conversation about, not only staff level, council level, with our consulting engineers, because we see it frequently on these large projects where there might be a change order. And I guess that's something that I want to clarify with them, because we might see a change order in one category where it's an increase, but then there might be a deduct in another category where it will be a decrease. But the way they document these things through their pay vouchers and things, I'm not 100% sure that that's the case on this one, but I have seen that happen in other ones where it's a change order for an increase in one area, but it ends up being a decrease in another area. So my point I'm just making, I think this is a subject that we should definitely talk about so that everybody is truly on the same page. I'm not saying that they're not, because we all know the policy, we adopted it, but we're finding lots of these events that are coming through that we need to clear up one way or the other.
Okay. So the motion is for the 2020 Street and Utility Improvement Project, pay voucher number 9. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson, second by Councilmember Peterson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye, motion is approved. Reports of City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, I guess several updates. Some of them, as we were talking about earlier, some of your actions this evening and approvals for the upcoming closing. We've been working on for quite some time for the Anchor View apartment development, and that is pending for next Wednesday, the 27th, to be closed for certain by the end of the month on the 29th, that Friday. With that closing taking place, the intent is for the developer to start construction immediately following that. So likely that following week, you will probably see some sort of mobilization out to the site to start the project. So they're not going to waste any time to get started with that. So that will fulfill our redevelopment, at least the beginning and the sales of all 3 parcels down there of that redevelopment site of the Anchor Block, former Anchor Block site that sat vacant for a long time. So I think it's hats off to you as council in support of bringing that project through this process and redeveloping it, and looking at that entire 20-acre site and what we're going to have there for a redevelopment. And basically, I'll say 2 years from now, or a little less than that, when everything is completed down there, because they're probably looking at a 16-month potential build time on the apartment potentially, or maybe 12 to 16 months. Quick trip that will be beginning down there in the spring. This spring, the storage building that'll be finishing down there this spring, early summer. So it's just and the M&I townhomes on that 20-acre parcel. It's quite a transformation. Families coming into the community. You have over, well over 200 housing units there in that area alone. So I think it's a proud development moment for the city. The development in the downtown at the former City Hall site, you can see that's progressing well. Framing is going along down there rapidly. The traffic signals are now in place and operational on the corner, and work continues. It's been nice for the construction work outdoors with having mild weather here in January so far. It does look like we're going to get some cooler weather coming in now, but everything is continuing down there with that. The development is hoping to get started with a model home construction, probably first of February. My guess would probably be from what I'm hearing. So that project will get underway. And one other thing for the downtown area, we're looking at and pursuing a grant opportunity for some street improvement work. And there's a grant opportunity for it's $1,250,000 is the potential grant dollars that would be available for street improvements within our downtown area. And we're going to pursue that grant. It's a non-matching fund. You don't see that very often. Usually there's matching funds. Not that another project area would be able to be done exclusively by that $1,250,000, but I think we've got a good opportunity, and we're going to submit for that grant and see where it takes us. If we are awarded that grant, I believe we have until 23 through the end of the year 23 to use the dollars. So just wanted to let you know on that. We'll put our hat in the ring and see where we go with that process. I'm trying to think what other items we have ongoing. Council meetings and opening the city hall. Our intent is to reopen City Hall to the public on Monday, February 1st. And then along with that reopening, we would also look at then resuming council meetings in building on February 2nd in a dual role. So we would continue to use Zoom. Council would be here in the council chambers in a socially distanced fashion. We've got seating spaced out up there than what we normally have. And we would be open and accessible to the public if they wanted to attend in person, but in a limited fashion in the council chambers. I think we would have room for about 10 public in the audience based on keeping our distancing there also. But we will continue to use Zoom, so the public or council members not feeling comfortable attending or having other commitments and not being able to be here, we'll still be able to use the Zoom as a dual function and feature. But I just want to get that notification out that we will reopen, barring some fluctuation in the whole COVID. And I guess I would say that this is will be our second reopening under the COVID, and it's a fluid thing for us. I think we're a small enough community and organization that we can move with those ebbs and flows. It's not a costly thing for us to have to close down and redo things. For the most part, staff is working in City Hall now and has been. It's just been closed to the public, but staff is obviously the social distance when they're working here in the building. We have basically 1.5 staff members that are working remotely, one full-time and one part-time, and that would return back to the building on February 1st. And we'll get all that information out on our website and promote that through our weekly newsletters and things like that. So I just wanted to put that out, and any comment or follow up with council if you have any questions or comments on that.
Any questions for City Manager Dudek? Not?
Okay.
Yes, Scott, or?
A couple more items. I guess some dates to look at formally setting, if council is comfortable with doing so. We would have proposing a council retreat workshop for February 23rd at 5 p.m. And so looking to firm up that date if council is okay to do that at this point, or if you'd want to wait till another meeting, or if your calendars are available this evening.
Yep, I think we talked about the workshop, and I think everyone pretty much agreed on it, unless you are unable to make that. Everybody okay with it? Okay.
Okay. Very good. We will plan that and get that posted. I guess we would probably plan on having that meeting in the training room would be my guess.
Right. All right.
Last item I want to throw out there is council pictures. So to take formal pictures of the council, we would look to do that on February 2nd on that evening, beginning at 5 o'clock. Just that's just ahead of our workshop or during the workshop. We'll adjust the workshop time accordingly to allow for the pictures. And we'll set that up barring any problem from the photographer that something would come up or change with that, but we'll plan February 2nd for that event.
Kate, and wear your best dress for those pictures?
Yes, please do.
Okay, anything else?
Any other questions or comments, let me know.
Any questions for City Manager Dudek? If not, reports of council, commission, and committees, Councilmember Cole. I'm just going to go in the box and go right to left. So go ahead.
First, I'd like to welcome aboard newly appointed Commissioner Alvarez. I'm excited to have him come on board. I think that'll be an excellent opportunity, and excited to have him on board. Next Park and Rec meeting is next Wednesday, the 27th at 6:30. It will be a Zoom meeting. One of the things on the agenda is we have been notified that there is outdoor recreation matching grant program available. So we're going to, from a couple different organizations within the state, we're going to dig in and see what we can do there to qualify for some matching funds to continue our Park and Rec development.
Good, that'll be good. All right, Councilmember Wong.
We haven't had a meeting for the Planning Commission, and also welcome to the new folks, and looking forward to working with existing commissioners. But I do believe our next meeting is February 4th at 6 p.m.
So with that, can I jump back in here?
Yeah.
We were waiting for this formal appointment this evening for the other planning commissioners, and what we would propose to get formally posted then is another planning commission meeting, potentially to be on January 28th, the last Thursday of this month, to basically be more of an informal meeting, but to get the new planning commission, I guess, together to more of kind of a meet and greet. We've got obviously the new council liaison, Lisa Wong, will be chairing that position. We will have our two new planning commission members that you appointed this evening. We also have a new contract city planner with WSB, who's taking the position of our former planner who left WSB. We've got a fair amount of turnover there, so I thought it would be beneficial that we have a meeting on the 28th, a special meeting to get the group together in preparation for the upcoming real business meeting of the Planning Commission, first meeting in February.
So that date is set in the schedule. We are going to do the January 28th.
Correct. We will do that. We'll make sure that all the new commission members and everybody gets a formal invite for that, and everybody's aware of. We'll kind of have an agenda for that. We'll get with the Planning Commission chair and solidify all that. But yeah, January 28th. I'm sorry.
Okay. Is that it, Councilmember Wong?
Yes, thank you, City Manager Dudek and Mayor Farland.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thank you. I kind of had a busy couple weeks. League of Minnesota Cities, I have a board meeting this Thursday. Had a busy agenda. Metro Cities, we had a Zoom meeting about the legislative session coming up. A few lawmakers were there, so we were asking them a lot of questions of what we can expect. And I'm also on the Minnesota League of our Minnesota Women's City Government. And we just found our schedule for 2021, and I invite Council Member Lisa Wong. I did put something in your mailbox, so it's interesting, and it's kind of a networking group. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, the EDA met last Tuesday, and we appointed Robert Dew as the chair, Kevin Fuller the vice chair, and the treasurer Don Jensen. And then we had some discussion on some potential development, and there is a parcel of property in downtown that the current mortgage holder, the bank, reached out to someone on the EA and wanted to know if the city might be interested in acquiring the property before it goes down a lengthy foreclosure and expensive foreclosure process. And so I guess the conversation basically revolved around how it would serve a public purpose. And it seems like it would be a perfect candidate to expand downtown parking. And the parcel I'm talking about is, the exact address slips my mind, but it's the Knick Knack Shop, which was formerly the Polar Pharmacy, which is a former drive-through liquor store. It's that parcel of land there. And, we just had initial discussions on, again, how that could serve public purpose if the city were to purchase it. There's obviously a due diligence period that needs to go through that before anything happens, but this is real early stages, and just kind of the direction from the EDA was to recommend staff engage and go down that path. And if anything were to materialize, it would obviously come to the council for final approval, but that's kind of the initial discussion. And we got updates on like what Scott touched on today, and that we will have our next meeting next month, the second Tuesday of the month at 3:30, and that one's going to be a Zoom meeting unless something changes. We're kind of doing our official meetings are every other month, but in the months in between, we're still kind of having a less formal, just an hour-long meeting, which is meant to be, give updates on development projects and whatnot. So, and then the Business Association is supposed to meet the second Tuesday of the month. They were not able to meet last month because of the restrictions, but now those have been lifted. The plan is to meet at the American Legion on Tuesday, February 9th, right? Tuesday, February 9th, 11:30 up at the American Legion, back in their kind of bingo hall, or the giant room in the back where they have more than enough space to follow guidelines and spread out and whatnot. So hopefully we can get businesses back in attendance and connect again and have a productive meeting and get updates on, hopefully I'm hoping to see quite a few businesses that received the $10,000 grant money show up and maybe get more involved and participate. But if not, maybe we can get them involved down the road. But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to add to the EDA, Rich McNamara stepping down. I know Rich has been on the EDA since the very beginning, and he brought a lot of wealth of knowledge to the EDA and helped us for the many years that he was on. So I just want to hats out to him. And so general business, Councilmember Cole. And you're muted. You're muted. You're still muted.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I think I've been on Zoom meeting since 8 o'clock this morning, so thank you. Just wanted to say that Councilmember Wong and myself are involved in the League of Minnesota Cities in their Elected Leaders Institute. Looking forward to the next 6 weeks of live Zoom meetings, as well as informal study at your own. I did jump into it a little bit today, and I did see Councilmember Peterson's smiling face towards the beginning of one of those. So I'm sure we'll see her as our training continues. That's all I got.
Good. Councilmember Wong, general business.
I would also say, Tim had already said that we are in the League of Minnesota Cities training, and then I've also been invited to participate in a network of elected officials in the metro area or throughout the state of Minnesota that are representing or identify as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color. So that's a new kind of group that's kind of forming and meeting and greeting. And that is taking place Friday at 8:30 a.m.
Good. Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
What? Okay.
I know.
Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, just wanted to follow up on comments that were made about the open to the public about the clearing of fire hydrants. I mean, it's just disappointing to hear that as an elected official that this topic gets brought up year after year and that it seemingly is just kind of a ridiculous reason of it's not our job type of excuse. It's just disappointing to hear. And, you know, as a member of the fire department for 10 and a half years, you know, the thought that if you know, in our current firefighters, if they ever had to pull up to your house or anyone else's house, your neighbor's house, and the fire hydrant was buried and they couldn't find it, and the reason was because somebody just thought, well, that's not my job to clear it, even though they're out clearing other equipment, is just kind of, I don't know, it's upsetting to say the least. So hopefully we can get that taken care of and resolved and put to bed and it never happens again. It seems like there's more effort put towards going out of your way to not do that than to just do it, even though the public is encouraged to do it as well. But I think there's a perfect example of how, you know, the weather can change quickly, and then a simple task of just moving snow away from a hydrant becomes a major undertaking when it's frozen solid. And not everyone has a tool cat with a snowblower attachment on it like city employees do. So, I mean, I've just stressed our city manager to follow up on that and get that resolved, and hope that that doesn't happen ever again.
Yeah, I agree, and I will. It was disheartening to hear this happen again because we had the conversation when it happened previously. So I will definitely follow up.
Is that it, Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, nothing else.
Okay, thank you. All I have is this Friday, Apollo Heating is donating a furnace to one of our residents, and he's a veteran. And Twin City Live is going to be there, and they'll be on live with representatives from Apollo Heating and myself. And this person who's receiving it is a veteran, so they want to get the kind of a veterans angle on this, and we'll be able to talk about a veterans park and our veterans home here in North St. Paul. So that'll be on Friday, and that's all I have. So at this time, we have no closed session. So motion to adjourn. We do have an HRA meeting right after this. So we'll adjourn, and maybe we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for the HRA meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You say nobody wants to adjourn. So moved by Councilmember Thorson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cole,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Furlong.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. We'll come back at 8:36. Take a 5-minute break. Thank you. And we're on this Zoom, so don't leave this Zoom.